This is the country that the Republican Party wants us to live in. When you hold up domestic terrorists like those who participated in January 6th as heroes, when you call them political prisoners, when you say that they should be pardoned for participating in that act of insurrection, you are sending the message loud and clear that violence is what you want, that trial by combat is what you want. And we have seen time and again that these people will listen to these leaders who are espousing these dangerous views, and they will act on them, whether it's what happened in San Francisco or even today. We also found out through SDNY that someone pled guilty to threatening to murder the staff and the Congressman Eric Swalwell. Someone in court, they pled guilty to that. These things are happening across this country, and the Republican Party is further seeping themselves into this extremism, into this radicalism. And the more that they continue to do that, the more that they pander to this group, the more that they call domestic terrorists just casual tourists on any given tourist day at the Capitol, the more that this is going to happen.
You know, Joyce, there's been a massive increase in threats to lawmakers since 2017. 9,600 threats in the year 2021 compared to fewer than 4,000 in 2017. I mean, no coincidence that Trump took office in 2016. So, Joyce, what can the Justice Department do to help curb this type of political violence that's going on?
Well, the Justice Department's mission here is very narrowly circumscribed. They can prosecute criminal conduct. That means that they can only act after the bad thing has happened. We should expect more from our political leadership. They're the people who should be acting before the bad thing happens. And while it's incumbent upon our elected officials across the political spectrum to condemn this kind of violence, the reality is that the people who condone the violence live primarily on one end of that political spectrum. And the Republicans should be calling tonight for the leader of their party, Donald Trump, to condemn violence and specifically to demand that these sorts of attacks, the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband, that they cease. I think it's unlikely that we'll see the former president do that, but I think that it would be a well-received move. We need to take steps to tamp down on the political violence, whether it involves people trying to cast their vote or this sort of outrageous attack on a political figure's family member. And it's incumbent upon people across the political spectrum to insist that that take place and that their leaders lead the way.
You know, Kurt, on Fox News, they're already pushing the narrative that this attack on Paul Pelosi was as a result of California's policies on mental health and crime. Let's take a very quick listen to some sound right now.
You've seen this effort to basically de-police, to demonize the police, to reduce consequences for crime, to let repeat offenders out without any consequences.
This can happen anywhere. Crime is random, and that's why it's such a significant part of this election story.
I mean, Kurt, how is it the case that there's such a dichotomy between what is the reality of the crime that has occurred here and the fact that the GOP wants to push on Fox News that this is as a result of a failure in democratic policies in a democratic state like California?
Yeah, listen, it's not a coincidence that, let's see, it was Gretchen Whitmer that was the subject of a kidnapping plot. It's not an accident that this was the Speaker of the House's husband. These are targeted. These aren't random. And it's not an accident, too, when you think about the fact that Kevin McCarthy just a year ago joked about hitting Nancy Pelosi with the Speaker's gavel. It's not a joke when Glenn Youngkin's out there in the last 24 hours here making light of what happened to Nancy Pelosi. This is a systemic issue that Republicans at the highest level, at the highest elected levels, they use violence and they joke about it. To them, violence is a laughing matter. And all that does is send the message to their audience, to their base, that violence is in fact what they want. And so it's no surprise that they act on them. For Republicans and Fox News propagandists to go out there right now and try to make light of this, try to make this part of their overall crime narrative that's pure fiction, is just total disregard for the actual facts, which is exactly where the Republican Party lives right now. They don't care about facts. They just care about doing whatever they can, try to use every situation to justify the venom that we see time and again, day in and day out from their base. And Joyce is right. This isn't a two-sides issue. This isn't extremism from both sides and violence from both sides. This is happening from one corner of the ideological spectrum, and it's from the Republican Party.